Well, top Senate leaders from both sides of the aisle are praising President Trump this morning, saying the U.S. missile strikes against the Syrian government sent a strong and needed message to the regime of Bashar al-Assad. At the same time, some congressional leaders are also calling on the president to develop a comprehensive strategy for dealing with Syria and the Islamic State.
What we saw was a reaction to the use of chemical weapons, something that I think many of us supported. But what we did not see is a coherent policy on how we're going to deal with the civil war and also deal with ISIS. Congress
needs to work with the president to try to deal with this long-term strategy, lack of strategy really in Syria. We haven't had one for 6 years during the. We definitely need a strategy. We need to work with the White House to come up with one that has bipartisan support.
And this comes as others like Senator Rand Paul are demanding congressional oversight of any new moves. Susan Friedschel is with us, Chief Congressional Correspondent for the Washington Examiner. Susan, good to see you.
Hey, Eric.
When you have members of Congress saying that we need a strategy, they're basically saying that there isn't a strategy when dealing with Syria. What do you think they'll come up with?
Well, I'm told that the president will send a strategy very soon, and that it will be dealing with Syria, and that there will also be information for lawmakers about the legal justification for the strike conducted on Thursday. So it's kind of two separate issues. The legal authority that he used Thursday night in Syria to attack the airbase, and secondly, what's next. And part of the reason it's sort of separated like that is that lawmakers feel content from listening to General Joseph Dunford on Friday. He's chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, that this was a one-time attack, and that considering what the reaction may be from Syria, they may not need to do anything immediately to deal with Bashar al-Assad. This could be a one-time thing, giving them more time to deal with a long-term strategy. So by Thursday night, you heard a lot of lawmakers saying, hey, wait a second, we need to talk about authorization for the use of military force. However, by Friday afternoon, when it became clear that this may not really lead to anything else immediately in Syria, lawmakers were content with the notion that Trump will, in the coming weeks, come to Congress with a strategy on Syria in the weeks ahead.
Well, you know, President Obama, he did not launch missile strikes because he did not get congressional authorization. That held him back. At the same time, he used the 2001, authorization after 9/11, to do a whole host of things, militarily. Do you think that Congress would try to tie the president's hands in dealing with this, or whatever he sends up to the Hill will satisfy them?
Well, this is a really tough issue. It's a hot potato. Congress does not like to vote on authorizing military force for the president. But you're right. On the other hand, he can't go forward with more attacks unless he gets authorization. I think that President Obama was able to do those airstrikes with ISIS and other actions, putting some boots on the ground there, using that 2001 authorization. But lawmakers really, even back then, were saying, look, it's about time we take a second vote on this and again, talk about authorizing and looking at a plan. I think at this point, not just because it's Donald Trump, but because so many years have gone by since 2001, there will be a demand for this. The problem is it's political poison to vote on something like this. And the second big problem, the two sides cannot agree on what the best policy is when it comes to authorizing war powers for the president. Democrats want something very limited. Republicans want something less restrictive, giving the military more power and authority to run things. And so you have a big disagreement on Capitol Hill. So when President Trump brings something forward, you're very likely going to get support from a lot of Republicans. Certainly not all Republicans, but probably some pushback from Democrats.
Yeah, certainly not. I mean, Rand Paul called the attacks an atrocity, for example. But then there was this. Lindsey Graham, man, he really speaks his mind. Here's what he said this morning, if you saw that when he was on Meet the Press.
If you kill babies with conventional bombs, it's still a moral outrage. Here's what I think Assad's telling Trump by flying from this base. F you. And I think he's making a serious mistake, because if you're an adversary of the United States and you don't worry about what Trump may do on any given day, then you're crazy.
Well, you heard it. I mean, he's colorful, that's for sure. I mean, so what do we do with that?
A lot of people talked on Friday about how the Thursday strikes were about a message, sending a message, and that There were, of course, as we all remember, a lot of complaints from Republicans that Obama was not forceful enough and did not send a strong enough message, not just to Syria, but to North Korea, to China, to Russia, to anyone who is pushing back too hard on the United States and elsewhere. And I think that's what you're hearing from lawmakers. They like the fact that this sent a message. The problem is, where do we go from here? And of course, the next question is, what will be the reaction from Syria? Will it require more response from the United States? And when that happens, that's when you're really going to get into a very murky and complicated issue in Congress, when they try to, debate amongst themselves how to authorize the president with more power to conduct military action, if that's where this leads us. It's not clear right now where that's going, but it is clear that what the president was doing and what lawmakers were acknowledging on Friday and fairly satisfied with was that he was using this also to send a message, and that message was needed, and that they felt the president prior to him, President Obama, hadn't done that, and perhaps that has led us to the situation we're in right now.
And finally, I mean, what is the mood? What's the sense in the gut up there because of that? I mean, look, Assad may be relaunching warplanes from the base that we bombed, but they don't have chemical weapons now. We've got a Navy warship and a aircraft battle group now sailing toward the Korean Peninsula. That certainly is a strong message. What are they saying about this president in that building behind you?
They were satisfied, even Democrats, with the strike. Of course, there are some outliers like Rand Paul and Justin Amash, the two libertarian lawmakers. But generally speaking, bipartisan agreement that this was a smart move for the president to make. However, there was also concern about what's coming next, because you need to have a strategy. The message I heard from Capitol Hill is there needs to be a strategy, and we haven't got one yet. And as the sound bites just proved that you played earlier, that's coming from Republicans and Democrats.
Yeah, and that's certainly something they want to see on Capitol Hill within the next few weeks.
They do, yes.
Susan Ferruccio, thank you for joining us as always. Good to see you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Of course.